Industry basically means a particular business type involving the process of the producing of goods in a way that these are available in large quantities. Since it is literally related to the quantity of production, it could be also portrayed as a concept of production based on mass production. Hence, industrialization refers the process that mass production has replaced manual labor and limited productions gradually. For instance, even though people had produced and sold many goods during feudal economy as well, such production cannot be regarded as industry because it was relied on basic capacity of producing and trade. It was just based on manual labor, therefore, there was no stable, fixed production in terms of quantity or quality. For these reasons, it is possible to say that industrialization was born thanks to technological improvements that provide producing with less labor and resources, but more quantity and profit, and the Industrial Revolution has been used as a term in order to imply the period of industrialization during 18 to 19 centuries. Although many revolutions had occurred on different subjects during human history, there is no doubt that Industrial Revolution is one of the most important ones among these. How Industrial Revolution has developed and why it is so important for human progress are some essential topics that many scholars have discussed and worked on it. Marx and Engels could be the foremost examples of these scholars due to their works and views drawing attention to the rights of labor by criticizing workers' conditions resulting from industrialization. When their power of ideologically inspiring masses and their impacts on world politics are considered, the importance of Industrial Revolution for today could be understood more easily as well. In other words, the main polarization of today's powers is caused by the conflict of capitalist and socialist ideas, and both ideas are highly related to Industrial Revolution. Besides, since the world has been restructured after the revolution by changes it brought about, this revolution has composed the basis of today's world in terms of social, political and economic conditions. As a result, Industrial Revolution could be portrayed as one of the milestones of human progress, and to be able to achieve a deep understanding about it, the way to Industrial Revolution, its birth in England and its outcomes should be addressed as three different perspectives. The Middle Age has a greatly significant place for human history since many important events and changes occurred during that time. For this reason, even though Industrial Revolution is assumed as the process that started in Britain at 18th century due to economic abilities, it actually came out as a consequence of the Middle Age and so, it would be associated with the whole European history. Radical changes happening in social, economic and political spheres during that time are regarded as main factors leading up to revolution by many scholars. These factors are categorized into two broad perspectives, which are intellectual and socio-economic factors. While intellectual background of Industrial Revolution implies the intellectual progress that the main idea of Renaissance, reform and enlightenment, socio-economic reasons refer that mercantilism and its advanced version which is called capitalism and technological improvements. First of all, to be able to understand how the world has achieved Industrial Revolution, its intellectual background should be questioned. When it is examined under this perspective, the importance of Renaissance and reform comes out. It is because Renaissance and reform are crucial movements shaping following flow of the history, including the period of industrialization. Thanks to Renaissance, the environment feeding the idea of reform could be established, and the main idea behind the modernist world and revolutions has shown up as the first attempts to differentiate religion from politics. For example, Machiavelli has inspired reform and enlightenment with his book called Prince since he was the first who suggested a secular approach about politics. In addition to Machiavelli, Erasmus also emphasized that human mind and will should be taken an essence of regulations of law, in his The Praise of Folly. For this reason, even though these people were diametrically opposite to each other, they had a common view about secularity. Thus, reform movements could emerge and it caused the entire socio-economic and also political structure of world to change. It is because this uprising during 16th century that gained a strong manifestation with 95 Theses by Luther helped to achieve intellectual obstacles that the Church imposed on believers as dogmas. For instance, 86 Thesis which is, why does not the Pope, whose wealth is today greater than the riches of the richest, build just this one church of St. Peter with his own money, rather than with the money of poor believers, could be one of the examples of main criticisms triggering to question religious teaching and practice conducted by the church. As a result of these intellectual progress, people started to question the reliability of all knowledges, especially one stated by the church, and this freedom enabled people to explore new facts and methods, and invent new technologies. The steam machines that are also considerably significant to develop industrial revolution can be accounted as the foremost among these inventions. Apart from intellectual transformation, Luther's stance against the church also brought about the exchange of economic power from church to new rising middle class called as bourgeoisies that protected Luther and supported scientific developments. As a result of it, capitalism has started to evolve on the ground that mercantilism provides, and with the colonialism, it became dominant economic structure which is basically the same with today's structure. For these reasons, intellectual background is regarded as important in terms of historical way to industrialization owing to its triggering influence on socio-economic factors leading to the revolution. When the revolution is considered within the impacts of socio-economic factors, mercantilism and capitalism should be examined thoroughly. It is because these are fundamental elements to be able to understand social, economic and political conditions, which have shaped human history. Especially, achieving better understanding about capitalism means being able to recognizing economic system that people have to face today, and also understanding criticisms of socialism and socialist revolutions. In that point, how capitalism was born and what relationship it has with industrial revolution could be an effective start point. Capitalism is the advanced version of mercantilism. However, it has some difference from mercantilism. Basically, mercantilism is an economic system of trade which was prevalent during the period between 16th and 18th century in Europe. The main idea of this system is getting surplus from net exports and effective usage of raw material on the basis of imperialist activities. Especially, after the church lost its confidence, its economic power also started to replace with merchants supporting reform. Thanks to such transmission, political sovereignty has also changed in a way that new rising class could gain supremacy. Thus, the new rising class has become richer than others and increasing capital in their hand ended up the birth of capitalism. Adam Smith, who is regarded as the founder of the capitalism in terms of its theoretical dimension, defined this system as social order based on making profit. In second chapter of an inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations, this idea was explained by these famous sentences: "It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own self-interest." Briefly, according to him, human beings just act in return for their interest since they are self-centered, and the economic maintenance of this nature shows up as capitalism. However, to be able to sustain this system successfully, an effective strategy is needed. That's why he tried to create a manifestation helping to understand and implementing capitalism effectively. In that point, mass production, increasing profit and private ownership has gained importance and capitalism has become distinguishable from basic mercantilist activities. This evolution has triggered capital stock and investments, which brought about industrial developments. Thus, beginning of the industrialization of the world has occurred with the birth of capitalism, and the prevalence of it has been parallel to the spread of capitalism. For these reasons, when relationship between capitalism and industrialization are considered, it becomes evident that socio-economic factors inducing the Industrial Revolution is enlightening to understand the way to revolution and coming outcomes that it revealed, as well.
A major juncture in the development of humanity occurred when the Industrial Revolution started in England in the late 1700s, transforming agrarian societies into industrialized ones. The core theories of Adam Smith and Karl Marx shed important light on the socio-economic factors behind this epoch-defining change and explain the reasons for this innovative time. In accordance with the theories of Adam Smith, who is acknowledged as the father of modern economics, the Industrial Revolution was driven primarily by capitalism and the dynamics of the market. The invisible hand theory, which Smith introduced in his seminal work, The Wealth of Nations, postulates that individuals who follow their own interests in a free market economy inadvertently enhance the well-being of the entire society. In his book, Smith indicated that an environment that supported the development of industry was fostered by the division of labor, trade, and entrepreneurship, factors that propelled the expanding capitalist system. England's growing population, access to natural resources, stable political climate, and supportive legal system all contributed to the country's thriving entrepreneurial culture. The growing market economy and the ideals of capitalism created the conditions for technological advancement and the ensuing industrialization expansion. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, Britain underwent a dramatic transformation from an agrarian society to an industrial powerhouse thanks to a complex web of interrelated factors that fueled the Industrial Revolution. In order to elaborate his ideas, Adam Smith argues that the innovations on agriculture, which is not clearly named as the Agricultural Revolution, was the most important of these catalysts, as it was a crucial precursor that drove Britain's industrialization. Crop rotation systems and the invention of the seed drill, among other farming innovations, led to a spike in agricultural productivity and an abundance of food. This success not only fed a growing population but also freed up a rapidly growing labor force, which was essential for the transition to industrial employment. As a prelude to the Industrial Revolution, technological innovation flourished in parallel. Manufacturing was revolutionized by visionary inventors like James Watt, Richard Arkwright, and James Hargreaves, who created groundbreaking machines like the steam engine, water frame, and spinning jenny marks. These revolutionary findings modified productivity and set the foundation for the growth of the industry. Britain's calculated infrastructure expenses, which included building a vast network of roads, canals, and eventually railroads, encouraged trade by lowering the cost of transportation, accelerating the flow of goods, and laying the groundwork for rapid industrial development. By improving connection, the building of canals like the Bridgewater Canal and the subsequent introduction of the railway network further stimulated industrial growth. Therefore, it is clear that both agricultural and technological innovations led the development of industry in England, which is encouraged by the improved transportation systems. Furthermore, the favourable political and economic environments in Britain were crucial in advancing industrialisation. An ecosystem that was friendly to businesses, a centralised government, and laws safeguarding private property all contributed to the development of an atmosphere that encouraged investment and entrepreneurship. The enclosure movement increased agricultural productivity by uniting smaller farms into larger holdings and directing rural labour toward emerging urban industries. Adam Smith echoed the belief that a skilled labour force combined with specialised tasks amplified productivity and innovation, which in turn underpinned the success of the Industrial Revolution. This idea is mainly called as the division of labour. He used an instance of a pin factory to show how concentrating on one task rather than several activities greatly increased production output as a whole. Therefore, as people grow more skilled and competent at their specialized jobs, specialization promotes increased productivity and efficiency and eventually increases output. In general, Smith argued that when people specialize in certain professions or trades, they enhance the wealth through increased production, exchanging extra products or services, and fostering overall economic development and financial success. Contrary to Adam Smith, Karl Marx, the harsh critic of capitalism, believed that the Industrial Revolution was the outcome of the fundamental contradictions in the system. He clearly indicated his ideas on Industrial Revolution in his pioneering works such as Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto. He argued that in an effort to exploit the proletariat for financial gain, the bourgeoisie was responsible for driving the Industrial Revolution. The advent of automated manufacturing in factories made it easier for capitalists to exploit labor by subjecting workers to harsh working conditions, extended hours, and insufficient pay. Marx argued that this exploitation resulted in deep solitude for the working class, which sparked protests and conflicts between social classes. Furthermore, Marx suggested that certain historical circumstances, most notably the shift from feudalism to capitalism, were responsible for the Industrial Revolution. The Enclosure Acts of England had a profound impact on agricultural practices by enhancing land into larger, privately held farms. Peasants were forced from their customary lands as a result, providing factories with a labor force that could be hired when the growing capitalist class needed inexpensive labor. Marx additionally emphasized how trade and colonial endeavors contributed to the capital and wealth accumulation that was required for industrialization. Having access to markets and raw materials made possible by England's colonial empire aided in the growth of capitalist businesses and the gathering of capital required for the advancement of industry. Similar to the ideas of Adam Smith, Marx further stressed the importance of technological development and the concentration of the equipment and methods of production. The invention of tools like the steam engine and the spinning jenny transformed manufacturing techniques and raised output. This paved the way for the Industrial Revolution, along with the construction of factories and labor exploitation. In general, he thought that historical, economic, and social factors led to the start of the Industrial Revolution in England. England's shift from feudalism to capitalism made in excess employment for industrial work by eliminating peasants. Marx emphasized the importance England's colonial expansions for providing the markets, resources, and capital accumulation that were essential for industrialization. Furthermore, the industrial manufacturing processes was driven by technological innovations. Meanwhile, the concentration of means of production in factories enabled labor exploitation, forming the foundation of capitalist industrial growth. Smith and Marx's perspectives converge on the pivotal role of economic forces in precipitating the Industrial Revolution. Smith's advocacy of free market capitalism and the pursuit of individual self-interest resonates with the entrepreneurial zeal and economic liberties that spurred industrial growth. Conversely, Marx's critique highlights the socio-economic disparities and exploitation inherent in the capitalist framework, shedding light on the human toll and societal ramifications of industrialization. In summation, the genesis of the Industrial Revolution in England was a complex interplay of technological innovation, economic imperatives, social changes, and human ambition. The divergent perspectives of Karl Marx and Adam Smith offer complementary insights into the multifaceted nature of this transformative period, elucidating the intertwined economic, social, and ideological underpinnings that catalyzed the onset of the Industrial Revolution in England.
The Industrial Revolution has an important place in all human history due to its results. For this reason, it has been evaluated by many historians and economists and has been the subject of academic publications. In fact, the changing social life and environmental conditions during this period were also reflected in the literary works written at that time. The Industrial Revolution has many generally accepted consequences from political, social, and economic perspectives. One of the most important results of the Industrial Revolution was the population increase in the cities of the countries that experienced this process. During the Industrial Revolution that started in the 1760s, by the late 1700s, a significant part of the society could not make a living in rural areas, so they moved from rural areas to large towns and cities to find jobs in factories and work for wages. These migration movements have also caused dramatic negative changes in the social structure. Cities grew rapidly and often became dirty, crowded, and unhealthy. The situation of the cities, which are foggy, unhealthy, and miserable, where serious environmental problems are experienced, is described in the novel Hard Times by Charles Dickens, one of the writers of that period and a world-famous writer today, who describes the city of Coketown, representing English cities, as a city drowned in its own fog, as if it were clouds. It is described with the expressions, as if wandering among the fogs. One of the results of the Industrial Revolution was the formation of the working class and the emergence of the idea of socialism in the future. From the beginning of the 19th century, a dual social structure consisting of factory-owning capitalists and the working class began to become evident in industrializing countries, especially England. Steam-powered machines significantly increased industrial production. In this process, entrepreneurs, bourgeois, who owned factories became very rich. Although the bourgeois class was a very small segment in society, it had the majority of the total income. On the other hand, factory workers, that is, workers, were paid very little and were trying to survive in great poverty. This dramatic level of poverty is even mentioned in Charles Dickens's novel, The Old Curiosity Shop. While the author describes the neighborhoods where the masses of poor workers live, he says that even in the shops there are goods that only poor people can buy, and that the sellers and their customers are poor people, each helplessly resigned to their fate. He described it as a circle of penniless people who had very little money to get by. Although the workers constituted the majority of the country's population, they earned a very small part of the country's income. This income distribution disorder and poverty developed during the mechanization process of the Industrial Revolution. Machines, which were the starting point of the Industrial Revolution, incorporated many similar tools instead of a worker using a single tool, and worked by providing their movement from a power source. Machines that work based on the power of steam engines have ceased to be an indispensable element of muscle power and have become tools that employ people who perform their adjustments, controls and some intermediate interventions. As the number of machines and factories increased, the importance of muscle power decreased, and a process began that brought women and children, including women and children, into the service of the capitalist system as wage workers, as the workforce that controls and regulates the continuity of the production of these machines. These changes resulted in the formation and rapid growth of a mass working class. However, while machines increased the number of wage workers exploited by capital, they also reduced the level of wages paid to them. The socialist communist movement of thought, pioneered by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, developed and became widespread with criticism and developed theories regarding this labor exploitation. Another consequence of the Industrial Revolution was the spread of colonialism. Countries such as England, France, the Netherlands, and Belgium, which are pioneers in this regard, have captured and colonized almost all of India, Indonesia, and Africa, which have a population 10 times larger than their own, with the power of weapons and transportation vehicles provided by the developing industry. Another result of the Industrial Revolution is that, with the increase in production, general social welfare increased over time and human life increased. Increased production with the Industrial Revolution caused prices to decrease over time. The decrease in the general level of prices made a positive contribution to the working class in this respect. Industrial development has brought about developments in medical technology, which has led to an increase in the average human lifespan. As human life has increased, the population in countries where the Industrial Revolution took place has increased significantly. When all these results are evaluated together, it can be said that the effects of the Industrial Revolution, which have a very important place in human history, and have affected all historical processes, are very important for all humanity. It is because people have witnessed many developments during this period due to significant economic, political, and social changes resulting from this revolution. Especially, when the increase in production and welfare that the progress of this period brought to humanity are considered, why Industrial Revolution is so crucial for human development can be clarified effectively. Hence, how has the world become industrialized and why this revolutionary progress is greatly significant to human history can be explained by an effective analysis of Industrial Revolution, accounting its historical background, its British origin and outcomes concerning globally.